Hello, everybody. Welcome for this morning session, and we will start with a keynote from Jim Oliver from Iowa State University. Just to let you know, maybe some of you know that already, that Jim was for 15 years the director of VRAC, the Virtual Reality Application Center, and also he helped a lot for the cave installations in France. He had a very long cooperation with Automotive Paris Tech, and at that time at Renault we went there with Renault vehicle data to check what is the latest cave technology, and the so-called Iris cave at Renault, which is still the highest level cave in the world, was helped. It was built thanks to the cooperation with Jim. So Jim, I give you the floor for your keynote. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and I hope we're all enjoying these waning days of summer. The weather finally cooperated, so I'm enjoying it. Hope you are too. Thanks, Andres, for that kind introduction, and to the organizing committee for inviting me to talk about my passion. I've spent more than 30 years working in the area of virtual and augmented reality. So I've lived through their modern evolution. But for this talk, I want to take a look ahead with one caveat, and that is predicting the future is risky, so please don't make any decisions based on my opinions here. So that's how we'll start off with that. But first, I'll take a real quick look back. If you're a regular at DSC, you might recall my talk 6 years ago in Antibes. In 2018, only 4 years had passed since a company once called Facebook acquired a startup called Oculus, and there ensued a tidal wave of investment in this space. We're now 10 years past that epic event, and progress has accelerated even further in the last 6 years, especially considering advances in adjacent technologies like machine learning and advanced telecommunications. And full disclosure, some of the predictions I made back then are wildly off, so there you go. I want to begin with some terminology. This space is awash in jargon, and I'd like to take a minute to describe my preferences just so we're all on the same page. I'm particularly fond of Professor Bob Stone's definition of extended reality. This is his update of Milgram's classic 1994 reality-virtuality continuum. Stone, like Milgram, Stone defines XR as that continuum between the real world and a completely virtual representation. But his distinction between augmented and mixed reality really makes sense to me. AR superimposes digital content with views of the real world, while mixed reality incorporates physical elements with AR to enhance believability. Seems to make sense in that continuum to me. Of course, we have Mark Zuckerberg to thank for popularizing the term metaverse. This is a term that they throw in blockchain, NFTs, and Web 3.0 into the usual XR bucket of capabilities, with the hope that someday we'll all live in the metaverse and conduct actual transactions and personal relationships in XR. But I'm still partial to Bob Stone's definition. More appropriate to this audience, Gartner further focuses the term by adding industrial to metaverse, defining it as the convergence of the physical and digital worlds. But this incorporates terms popular in industry such as digital twins and real-time data analytics. Again, I'm going to stick with Stone's definition of XR, just so we're all on the same page. Now that we have common vocabulary, let's look at market trends. Back in 2018, I introduced the VR market in the context of the hype cycle. This is a tool that's commonly used by market analysts like Gartner to characterize the evolution of a technology. The hype cycle begins with technology trigger, followed by a spike in enthusiasm, a steep decline into disillusionment, and a slow climb back to actual productivity. My professional trajectory coincides with VR's first hype cycle, starting with Jaron Lanier's founding of VPL as I was finishing my PhD in the mid-'80s. About 7 years later, Hollywood came out with a feature film, terrible film, Lawnmower Man, wildly hyped VR capabilities. It's really kind of a signal that this has become part of the popular culture way back then. I'd estimate the actual peak was around the mid-'90s. That's when we had location-based entertainment, lots of little companies started up. And shortly thereafter, about 10 years later, Computer World voted VR one of the biggest technology flops. So it hit the wall. Yet 7 years after that, Facebook buys Oculus. And 6 years ago, and on TEAB, I suggested that VR was approaching that plateau of productivity. And although I did question whether it was entering another hype cycle back then. Gartner, of course, employs many experts to read the tea leaves and look at what's next. I didn't see this chart back in 2018, but it was reassuring to see that they placed VR at about the same evolutionary stage that I did. But look where AR is. It's deep in the valley of disillusionment. We fast forward just 6 years, and they've switched places. VR slipped back into the trough, and AR is inching up the slope. 6 years. So despite all the technical advances and proliferation of options, I think this reflects that limited penetration of VR in consumer markets and the increasing potential of AR in enterprise applications. Another chart I used back then, and it's still valid, is a Goldman report, very thorough analysis of the market, still referenced to this day. At that time, they estimated the total addressable market to be about, and this is everybody, not just automotive, $80 billion by 2025, so we're almost there in time. But note, they estimated that consumer markets would dominate. Looking ahead, or more recently now, despite missing where the growth would occur, they got the overall size about right. This is a more recent estimate, confirms Goldman's 2025 conviction. Here it's about $87 billion. And again, this is everything, software, hardware, service. Is still extrapolating very strong growth in the market. Another indicator of potential market growth is patents awarded. 130,000 VR patents over the last 20 years. And note that explosive growth in patents awarded since 2014 when that Facebook acquisition happened. And of course, the top players on the right there look very familiar, I'm sure. As very familiar names, OEMs and tech companies. Similarly, 93,000 AR patents have been awarded in the past 20 years. And by the way, all this data, the patent data I collected back in May and June, so I expect that it's not a fall off, it's just when I collected the data. So I like to keep an eye out for XR patents related to the automotive industry, especially since I'm coming here. And here are a few representative examples. Many of the XR patents, automotive related, are focused on enhanced autonomous driving or ADAS applications, like this one from Mobileye, which addresses sensor fusion to detect pedestrian occlusion zones, so pedestrians behind trash bins or something like that. So incomplete data that they're trying to address, again, for ADAS and autonomous driving. Similarly, this Waymo patent deals with sensor degradation due to weather or other anomalies. So a lot of work in this idea of sensor robustness and fusion. Many address more effective head-up displays. This one from Samsung proposes 3D AR for more effective trajectory guidance. And I have more to say about this technical challenge in a few minutes. And another common thread in many of these automotive applications, like this one from NVIDIA, address remote teleoperation, in this case, supervisory control over autonomous vehicles afforded by advanced telecommunications and VR. So here we're operating a vehicle remotely. Again, think about the latency and challenges related to that. But NVIDIA is thinking ahead in these areas. Next, I'd like to shift gears and talk about technology trends. So let's take a quick look at where we stand right now. You're all familiar with these players that typically dominate the market, the state of the art. Remember, initially, AR and VR headsets addressed different applications completely. But more recent introductions from Vario, HTC, and Apple combine VR and AR, typically with adjustable video see-through. They all compete in the usual technical innovations, such as field of view, resolution, tracking, ergonomics, and power. Some specifically address consumer markets, others focus on the enterprise, and some, like Magic Leap, have pivoted completely from one to the other. That I think we're all still looking in the general area of XR for that killer application, but I think enterprise applications seem to have more potential than consumer applications, not just because of this audience, it seems to be the trend. Not all big bets pay off. So several years ago, Microsoft landed a huge investment from the US Army, but technical challenges, ergonomics, the usual challenges, power, put this experiment to rest. But more recently, the Army's announced a new open competition to try again to enable soldiers to get information in context with the spatial environment. And everybody talked about this one. It's interesting, Apple calls it spatial computing. Again, I'm going to stick with XR, Bob Stone's definition. Magic Leap talked about spatial computing. But this is like the most hyped introduction of this past year, the Vision Pro. And if you haven't tried it yet, it's worth a look. The high-resolution display is really impressive, as is that ability to shift between VR and AR. And they also include the very interesting feature to capture 3D videos and photos. And that capability will be coming out in iPhones as well. But when I tried it, it was a challenge. It took me about 20 minutes to change from the default configuration to guest mode, which was very annoying. And I enjoyed touching the dinosaurs and things, but I wasn't completely impressed. It's got great features, but its high price and limited applications have resulted in underwhelming adoption. So there's the 3D photos. The next kind of trend this year, the last couple of years, smart glasses, they're everywhere. They're all over. And I view these as the second coming of Google Glass from 10 years ago. We all remember that experiment that failed. While they enable superposition of digital content onto the physical world, it's still 2D content. So I struggle to call these AR. We can, I guess it's cheaper than watching a big screen TV, but who wants to watch a movie by themselves in the living room? So recent research really promises to address the 2D limitation of current AR glasses and the weight, complexity, lag, and ergonomic limitations of video see-through XR headsets. These next two papers I'm going to present are literally hot off the press from a month or two ago. So to produce 2D digital images, existing see-through AR glasses use amplitude-based spatial light modulators, or SLMs, implemented with a projector-based light engine that is at least as thick as the lens's focal length, as shown in that top left figure. Gordon Wettstein's group at Stanford introduces a phase-only SLM that can be mounted very close to the waveguide, yielding a compact form factor. They also describe meta-surface waveguides and clever tuning that enables superposition of 3D holographic images as shown in the lower figure. So The bunny on top is a 2D image that you see, just like current AR glasses, and the one at the lower level is a 3D holographic display. Another bleeding edge paper here. A fundamental challenge of holographic displays is the trade-off between image quality and field of view. This paper from Felix Heide's group at Princeton introduces a neural attendu expander, which is a small piece of glass etched with a pattern that scatters the SLM's light into different frequency bands, resulting in a 10x improvement in field of view with high-quality 3D images. I think it won't be long until these innovations are commercialized. Again, these were literally a month or two ago that just hit the press, and they're getting popular press as well. Let's talk a little about content creation. There's even more promising research in this area. We've all spent the last decades dealing with modeling software, CAD, translators, texturing, scene graphs, game engines, all to develop virtual worlds, models of the physical world. And I think that's about to change. Yesterday, our colleague at ANSYS mentioned neural rendering. It's here. This is a paper from SIGGRAPH, summer of 23. 3D Gaussian splatting introduced. It's evolved from neural radiance field research, also called NERF techniques. I abbreviate it as G-splats for Gaussian splatting. They enable real-time rendering of scenes captured from video. So I got a couple examples here. I take my iPhone and I go take a look at this scene, hand it over to my machine learning algorithm and crunch on it for a bit. So that's a video clip. Again, it's not the whole thing, but this is the interactive 60 frames per second render of that same environment. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. I'll stop that one. I'll play this one. So now he's walking around in an HMD or anything else. And you can say, oh, there's visual artifacts. It's not exactly precise. But imagine trying to model that scene, the leaves, the lighting, everything else. It's really quite impressive. And last but not least, here's another beautiful garden scene, again, captured by video. And, oops, didn't mean to do that again. Play this little garden scene, because I'm going to use it later. So it looks like I'm driving around. So this is not video. This is interactive, 60 frames a second environment that someone can interactively manipulate. So since then, this was, again, summer of 23. This summer, oh, come on now. Vario put out a beta of what they call Teleport. Same idea. You capture a video of your motorcycle shop and upload it to their cloud, and you get a interactive scene of the same environment. So 1 year, it's already becoming a commercial opportunity. Last December, I presented that INRIA G-splat paper to my colleagues in the DSC scientific committee, and the response was, interesting, but we need models of the environment, not just a visual depiction. And so this year, at the IEEE Computer Vision and Pattern Recognition Conference, again, this is just 2024, other French colleagues introduced Sugar, which enables the extraction of mesh models from G-splats within minutes on a single GPU. So in this example, they took the vase from the garden, they took the Lego crawler model from another G-splat, and the ninja guy from a third G-splat, and dropped them all into the garden environment. So now, rather than producing virtual environments from models, as we've done for 40 years, with computer vision, we can now produce models from virtual environments that were created from video. Amazing. I mean, this is really exciting to me. And at this summer's SIGGRAPH, that same INRIA group from 2023 extended their G-Splat technique to process very large data sets captured from multiple cameras. So here they've got a GoPro, they've got a helmet, bike helmet with 6 GoPros pointing in all directions. They either ride a bicycle or walk around a campus setting. And again, this is a big divide and conquer algorithm that they're able to, make this work. And here's an example of, now you see on the right is a little map. You can see the view frustum of the person moving through this environment. And so it's somebody just walking around in that virtual environment, navigating, essentially. But again, incredible visual realism, but an interactive virtual environment. And investment in this, at the intersection of these technologies and automated driving is also booming. Wave, we saw the logo of them yesterday, UK startup, maybe they're here as well, landed $1 billion venture investment from big name people that you'd recognize. And they define this idea of embodied AI as a difference. They'll say in contrast to cognitive AI, which focuses on large language models, Wave defines embodied AI as bringing AI into the physical world. Its approach apparently does not rely on maps or LiDAR sensors. It's all this video into virtual worlds. In fact, Mistral here in France also landed a $500 million round of venture funding. They're not specifically focused on autonomous driving, but a lot going on in this space. This past June, so 2-3 months ago, Wave introduced Prism 1 based on the INRIA's hierarchical G-Splat paper. In fact, the folks at INRIA used some of Wave's data in their research paper. You can go look it up. But Prism is pretty impressive. You can go check it out. Here's an example. They can, again, this is a virtual environment that was created from video. They can freeze time and take a look around at any position, which is interesting. Or they can freeze the camera position and let time move forward or backward. Incredible functionality afforded by these G-Splat techniques. Finally, a look at the impact of advances in telecommunication. I presented this graphic from Nokia back in 2018, the year 5G technology began to roll out in the US. And you all can, if you look at, obviously any generation of telecom technology, one can increase bandwidth by sacrificing, i.e. increasing latency, but, or vice versa. So choosing the midpoint of each, here's what 5G enabled. And we're all pretty familiar with 4K streaming on our phones, and it's amazing how fun that is to keep up with things. But in about 6 years, 6G will begin to be deployed, so 2029, 2030. And again, taking the midpoint of bandwidth and latency, that puts us squarely in the upper right quadrant of capabilities. And you can see what's possible there. So in addition to fully autonomous vehicles, we should be able to have wireless mobile XR capabilities and much more efficient OTA updates, right, if we have that level of bandwidth. We talked about OTA yesterday. And I'd say all of this is within 10 years of now that we'll start to see this kind of capability. And what's that going to look like? This is Audi's Active Sphere. Some of you have seen that. It's a very cool concept car, either autonomous or ADAS. So if it's autonomous, the steering wheel folds under the thing and you just let it ride. But it has an XR HMI, and they implemented it with a HoloLens, not a HoloLens, it was a Magic Leap 2. The user interface adapts to either ADAS or autonomous, And here's some examples of what that might look like. Again, this is a concept vehicle. You see some clips I took off the internet. Just demonstrating what's potentially possible when all this technology reaches maturity. Here's an ADAS example. I don't quite know what benefit looking at the traction of your wheels are, but maybe that would be important to see through down to your tires. But again, a very innovative look ahead at what's possible. So, what's next? I actually want to leave you with some, again, conjectures that I have. And to come up with a photo, I thought I'd play with an AI image generator and gave it this interesting, I'm not very good at prompting the AI engines, I guess, yet. But I asked it to give me the future of automotive HMI featuring thin augmented reality glasses and advanced 6G telecommunication with an enthusiastic driver. So I was kind of disappointed with the output. But anyway, here's what my takeaways for you. I think I agree with Tim Cook. AR is the future, not just for enterprise, but I think for all of us as we move through the world. The next generation of thin, lightweight XR glasses will be coming in probably 5 to 10 years. AI-enabled XR will expose lots of new applications, including that content creation. I think it will be revolutionized. And mobile XR with 6G telecommunications also opening a lot of doors. And all of that leads to more potential in the automotive business. So with that, I've used most of my time, but if anybody has a question or conjecture, please fire away, right? Thank you.